Hello, everybody. Cheers. Happy Wednesday. I'm insane today. I'm not going to be drinking whiskey today. I'm drinking iced tea because I just got off an airplane and I had enough whiskey through SEMA to kill a small animal. So we're in recovery mode a little bit. I'm actually in Panama City Beach, Florida right now in a lovely hotel room. I came out here for the Emerald Coast Cruise In. If anybody is in the Florida area, or I guess the Panama City Beach area, I should say, if you don't already have plans on coming down, you should, and come say hello to me. I'm going tonight sans glasses because the lighting in this hotel room is awful, and I couldn't find a single spot where I could film and not have like ridiculous glare in my glasses. So I apologize. I'm probably not going to be able to read your comments very well because, you know, glasses and things. But anyway, cheers. Welcome to this week's episode of Trades Lady Happy Hour. This is a special week for me because my guest is, if you've read the post, the first other female mechanic that I ever knew existed. Long before I started my career, when I was, I'd taken shop class in high school. I was considering doing this as a career, but hadn't really made any decisions, and I didn't know anybody else who was like me. I thought I was just this super odd duck weirdo. It was pre-social media. It was before we knew about each other like we do now. And my mom clipped an article about this woman, Lori Johnson, who was a technician. And it was kind of like my light in the dark, showing me that this was possible and that I wasn't just a weirdo. So I'm like extra excited to get to introduce her to you guys, to connect with her and hang with her for a little bit on Happy Hour. We've become pretty good friends over the years. We don't see each other nearly enough. I did just spend some time with her at SEMA, so this is going to be fun. She's not done an Instagram Live before, so we're going to be patient with her, and hopefully she will be able to find her way here. I've just invited her. So hopefully, Lori, if you're out there, I just sent you a request. You just got to accept it. I haven't seen her join the room per se yet, but hopefully she is. You see me squinting, trying to read the comments. You like that? All right, Lori, where are you? So I'll just continue telling the story of Lori and I until she shows up. So I had gotten this article that my mom clipped about her, and then many years later, I'd already gone through UTI. I went through BMW school. I had worked for BMW for many years at that point and had opened up my shop. And so I was running an independent shop. I had started teaching car care classes. And I got introduced to Lori through another amazing woman in the industry, I believe, and Lori will correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I believe it was Jody DeVere from Ask Patty who introduced us originally. Pause for a second. I just got a message that Lori was unable to join. Lori, if you are watching this and you are here, make sure your app is updated. Sorry for technical difficulties, guys. If you're watching, oh, there we go. I see, maybe. I'm accepting your request. Why is it not accepting? Come on, Instagram. Why does it do this? They're always changing stuff on me. It is not letting me accept her request. Lori, I'm sending you another invite to follow or to join in because your request to join is not working. I don't know why. I hate technical difficulties. So until we get this sorted out, like I said, I'm going to keep telling the story. So Jody DeVere is another trailblazer in the automotive industry, phenomenal woman. If you're not familiar with her or her company, Ask Patty, definitely check it out. It's Ask Patty Automotive Advice for Women. And she's another trailblazer in the industry. So I'm pretty sure she was the one who introduced Lori and I. I went out somewhere to meet up with Lori where she was teaching a car care class. And that was the first time we met. She's just an incredible woman. She continues to do a ton of stuff in the automotive industry. She's a trained technician, certified. She's done work with ASE. She's done work for, I believe it was Haynes or Chilton's, one of the two, writing technical stuff. She owns her business, Ladies Start Your Engines, which goes around all over the country, teaching car care classes to women, kind of automotive basics and automotive maintenance. So all good stuff. She's pretty awesome. If we could ever get her to join us, come on, technology. Lori, I don't know what's going on. It's not letting me add you, Lori. So if you are watching this, like leave the live and come back in and request me again or request to join again. Because it just keeps saying, Ladies Start Your Engines is unable to join. So you guys are stuck listening to me ramble until she joins in. Hello, everybody. For those of you who are just joining, this is Trades Lady Happy Hour. We have a special guest this week, if we can ever get the technical difficulties to sort out. She is the first woman that I ever knew of who was also a mechanic, so that's pretty awesome. And I don't know why we can't get her added. Oh my gosh, it's Lori.
Yeah.
Hi. Yay!
Wow, that was crazy. You're talking, I'm trying to get on. It's like, okay.
I know, and
But I do have
on,
beer.
so I'm like trying to like see things in there and I can't. But anyway, cheers.
Yes. Cheers. I do have beer, so.
Oh, I'm jealous. I'm drinking iced tea. Too much whiskey at SEMA.
Yeah.
SEMA's an evil place, I tell you what.
Um,
So, welcome. Thanks for joining me and hanging out with me. Do you want to do a quick little intro to everybody? I've been kind of telling the story a little bit, but I want to have them hear from your mouth who you are, what you do, what makes you so badass.
so it was in the 80s when I decided that I wanted to work on cars. There wasn't any great thing. I just thought, I didn't want to work in an office. I wanted to be able to, be independent. I like to take things apart and put them back together. And so it seemed like an interesting career. My parents weren't really on board at that point, but they soon came around.
How do you, I mean, this is going to give away your age, but can I say, like, how old were you when you were, like, was this your first career that you were looking at, or had you done other stuff first? I can speak, I swear.
I had done some other things, but I was still in my like mid-20s
Okay.
when I started. So when I went to school, I was in my mid-20s.
Okay.
And so I kind of thought that if I was going to do this, I really needed to have training. I didn't feel like as a female, I was going to walk in and go, here I am. I want to work on cars. So I did a certificate program. And when I got out of that, there was a job ad for a Honda dealership. So I went in there with my little toolbox that I could carry because that's the tools we got when we were in school. And the guy interviewed me and he hired me on the spot.
Wow.
And I think it was a joke, but anyway, he hired me to work on the new cars and also on used cars, which scared the crap out of me because I thought I just came out of school. I don't know everything about every car. So
Right.
I think it was kind of a challenge.
Yeah.
But I ended up taking his job in the end, so it all kind of worked out. Yes.
Okay, we have to dive more into that. You're going through your story way too fast. There's too much juice here. Like, we got to dissect all of this. You went to, first of all, like, you went to school in the 80s for auto repair. Were you the only woman in your school?
Yes.
Had they had another woman previously, or were you like the first?
Well, some of the guys told me that they did have some girls come through who were just looking for husbands.
Oh, yeah.
So they didn't go through the whole program.
Okay.
And I was like, okay. And actually, there was a woman who started when I did, and she carried a purse around with her. I knew she wasn't going to last very long, and she didn't. So, yeah, nobody serious, I guess.
So were you the first woman, girl, whatever we want to call it, who graduated from your program?
Yeah, I think I was because they really wanted me to come to graduation and I really didn't want to go, but I'm sure they were going to make some big deal out of it, and
So you didn't
I
go?
just no. No,
Interesting.
I was kind of fed up with the school. Unfortunately, I didn't have a great experience in the beginning. The guys like didn't want me to be there. When I would walk through the shop to go to class, I could hear guys yelling stuff at me, and so it was not a great beginning. And I feel like the school wasn't super supportive in the beginning. Uh, but I finished the program. I ended up getting about four guys that were in my class that were became friends, and I think they told those guys, hey, knock it off, because I never heard from them again after these guys like kind of befriended me. So, uh,
I want to, if you're okay with it, I want to dig into this like aspect of it a little bit because I feel like, there's a couple of layers to this, right? Like I talk to young women who are getting in and they're still facing some struggles in school, and dealing with all of that. And then there's also like the layer of, my goodness, how far we've come since when you were going and you were the first woman to graduate from this program, and how challenging that must have been for you. Like how did you deal with it? How did you survive and stick with the program, and what kept you going through all of that?
I think probably like you and some other women that I know that have been in this industry, the more I heard you shouldn't be doing this, I was like, oh, I'm going to finish and I'm going to finish better than you. I'm going to have better grades. I'm going to get a job, So I mean, I won't say that every day I went in and I was like, yay, I can't wait to battle these guys.
Right.
But I, it made me angry, I think, that I was being told by, these guys that I couldn't do something when it really had no bearing on what gender you were. And I just wanted to learn just like they did. And so I stuck with it because it just pissed me off. And and it's unfortunate because not everyone's like that. And I don't know that I'm sure there's a lot of young women out there that get in it and they're like, forget it. I'm not going to deal with this. And it's not fair. And you and I know we talked to when we were at SEMA to some of these younger women, and it is amazing that some of this stuff is still going on. I
I
just
know.
can't believe it. I in the 80s it was a time where we weren't being so politically correct. It was okay to say some of these things, or they just come on, you're one of the guys, just let it go. And now I think they have to take more ownership, especially schools and that kind of thing. They can't let these women be harassed and that kind of thing. So,
Yeah. Ideally. I mean,
right.
I think you're right. Like some of it does still exist. I think there's definitely still challenges, and I think it depends on where you go to school. Um, but I'm just, I'm constantly so grateful for women like you who came before me, who struggled so much more than I did. I struggled so much more than some of the young ladies coming up now. Some of them are still dealing with hellacious situations trying to get into the industry, but um, we wouldn't be where we're at now if it weren't for women like you. So I'm just like, I'm grateful. I'm grateful
Well,
for you being stubborn and angry and surviving despite everybody.
well, what's funny is that like I don't look back on it as a totally terrible experience. I mean, I know there were bad days, and I probably came home. I had three roommates at the time. We were all like in college, kind of, and I'd come home and I would just be like, I can't believe this is going on, and but they were really supportive too. And so I think, that had a lot to do with it, that they thought it was really cool. All my friends, my female friends, thought it was great that I was doing this. And so having that support was, really great.
Yeah.
And I think, um, I don't think of myself as like, oh, I'm the first person. I mean, there were plenty of women before me that were in automotive that we just never heard about.
Oh, totally.
Um, and they did it,
Right.
and they're kind of the unsung heroes here
Oh,
because
totally.
They were doing it way before we were, and driving cross country in cars
Right.
when women weren't doing that, riding
Totally.
motorcycles. So I'm grateful that I could be there. And I think, when I started this career, I don't know how you felt, but I just wanted a job. I didn't plan to become like the spokesperson for, all women in automotive, but I
Nor I.
didn't, yeah, well, I didn't realize that was going to happen,
Yeah.
I mean, I saw the writing on the wall. It was either like I was just going to put my head down and just work, and this is what it was going to be, or I was going to turn it into an experience and make it something that would be easier for the next generation to come up. So,
I appreciate you saying all that because you're right. There are a ton of trailblazers, and there are women who, long before you or I, weren't allowed to get into the industry, even though they wanted to. And so hopefully, right, like each decade, each generation, it gets a little easier and a little easier, and hopefully, like the ladies today are paving the way for the next generation of women for it to be even easier for them to get in. And
right.
the whole talking about how many women didn't make it through the program, like I hear people talk all the time in the industry, and this is a huge thing in and of itself, right? Because it used to be nobody was talking about women in the industry. It wasn't something that people were seeking out. In fact, they were actively trying to not have women in the industry. Now I hear shop owners and businesses and dealerships talk about, how do we attract women, how do we attract women? Schools are saying this, and it's frustrating because I feel like we do attract women. We just then scare them off.
Right. Right. And I think, like, so for about 8 years or so, I worked at a community college in Philadelphia where they have an automotive program. And that was a great experience for me. The guys that I worked with were awesome. I had known one of them for many years, and he kind of brought me in, and they were so supportive of what I do and still are. And it also put in front of those new students who were coming in a female right from the beginning. And they knew they couldn't say a thing, or they were going to be, somebody was going to be right on top of them.
Yeah.
And so we started to get more women into the program because I was there and I was helping recruit, and I was going out, and speaking at, getting to girls around the junior high age is really where we need to be starting, not when they're in high school because they've pretty much already made up their minds,
Yeah.
but exposing them at a younger age when they're less afraid to try these things.
Yeah.
So we would get girls in the program and they would graduate and they wouldn't get jobs. And it's still happening. They get through the program, they like it, and then they think, oh, you know what? I'll just use it to work on my own car.
Right.
And that, okay, I mean, that's great if that's really what
Sure.
you wanted.
Sure. But if
But,
it's because nobody will hire you, that's a
right,
problem.
right. Or they get hired and then they hate it because of how they're treated there.
Right.
So I've worked with a couple different people who kind of keep statistics on that kind of thing, and it's not great. We're seeing the women who are going through, I don't know what the percentage is, but I don't think it's very high, that actually end up working in the career that they, in automotive, in the industry at
Yeah.
all. And it's kind of sad.
It's super sad. I think our industry is losing people in general, but particularly women. I think there's so many challenges with it. It's such a great industry, and I love so much about it, and I love being a technician. But we're not a welcoming industry to newbies, right?
Hmm.
And if you're a woman on top of that, like, we're definitely not welcoming as an industry. And we talk all the time about how there's this trade deficit, and yet we're actively scaring people off. And I hear shops all the time say, we can't find techs, we can't find techs. But I hear women all the time saying, nobody will hire me. Like, how do we have this massive disconnect still?
Yeah. I think part of it is that uh, the automotive industry, I think, has been slow to progress to what's happening in the world today. I mean, if you think about it, we had during COVID, we were considered essential. So people worked in the automotive industry all through COVID. And so it was really interesting because it was almost like they didn't get I don't want to say they didn't get what was going on out there because their businesses were affected,
Sure.
but they worked through it. and they were like, I don't need this mask, or I don't, I want to protect my customers, but we're okay here, safe in the shop. And it's just, I think sometimes the mindset is a little behind what the progress that we're trying to get to. You've got people in the shop that are just starting to really embrace the technology and be excited by it instead of afraid of it. And these younger techs are bringing that with them. And so I think it is scary. If you're older and you weren't trained on how to diagnose all the things that are going on now, how to
Oh
use a
yeah.
scan tool, how to hook up to the computer, how to do all these things, it's intimidating. And why do you want to learn when you're, in your 50s, 60s now, that kind of thing? So it's embracing that as well. And I think, you look at some of these young people that are coming out that are highly intelligent and they know how to do this thing, and it's probably threatening to some
Yeah.
degree because it's new technology, and you don't want somebody smarter than you, working under you, but yet you do.
Right.
So I think there's, just some challenges in that way. And
Yeah.
then, put women in there along with it
Right.
in shops where you and I both know there are still shops out there with the girly calendars and and so how can I work in a shop if up on the wall next to me is this model scantily clad holding a wrench, and that's their idea of how women should be in the industry?
Right.
So,
Yeah. It
it's just a lot.
non-verbally says you're not welcome here.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, by no means, there are a lot of shops out there that are very progressive and
Absolutely.
they're hiring those kids and they're embracing, everything that they know and they're learning from them.
Yeah.
But the industry is, I don't know, it's still considered, unfortunately, to be a grease monkey. You're going to get dirty and, people are going to kind of disrespect them. But
Right.
I'm telling you, we're going to be the doctors of the day soon.
We're car
Because when you
doctors.
take, yeah, when you take your car in and it costs you as much as it does to, go see your doctor, you're going to understand like
Oh
what,
yeah.
yeah, we're worth it. We've put in the training and, you're paying for the services that you get. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and you're right. There are a ton of amazing shops and there are a ton of amazing people within the industry. And it's always challenging because I want to sing the praises of the industry. And I also want to be real about the challenges that we face.
mhm,
And I don't want to discourage people from joining the industry, but there's also acknowledging the challenges that we have and what's going on and what's real for a lot of ladies still in
right,
to this
right.
day. But
And it depends on what you want to do. I mean, there's so many career opportunities. You don't have to just work on cars,
yeah,
There's just so many, like you've been learning fabricating and, welding, and I mean, there's just so many different things that you can do. And it's the big thing for me is that nobody's explaining that to these girls when
right.
they're coming up in school.
Yeah, the layers of opportunity. So let's talk about that a little bit because you have worked in lots of different areas of the industry. So who better to speak on the different ways that women, because I know there's a ton of women in the audience right now and a lot of women who will see this. So what are some of the other things that you've done? You took your old boss's job because you're a badass, and then what happened next in your career?
So I I ended up while I didn't mind working on cars, I really liked talking to the customers. I felt that I was good with explaining what was going on, um, being kind of the conduit between the two because I knew what the tech was doing. I was able to explain it. So I kind of became like a service manager that way. And then I had like 7 guys that worked under me. And I really enjoyed that. So I I was at the dealership for 7 years. When I left there, I ended up being an editor for Chilton repair manuals, which, if you're not a certain age, you don't even know what those are. But for those of us who used to go to the store and buy a book about our
Back
car,
in the
and
day.
yeah, back in the day before the computers and the floppy disks, uh, you went to a store and you bought a
Chilton's.
manual from Chilton, and we had access to the industry books, and we pretty much wrote it so that everyone could understand it. And
I
I
love
got into that industry because it was while there were a lot of guys there, it was a writing thing. You know what I mean? So like you had to know that, oh my gosh, if you do this, you have to take the alternator out or you're not going to get to it because it wouldn't say that in there in the book. So you did have to be mechanical, but you also had to be able to write. So there were four women out of, I don't know how many of us there were. There were probably about 60 of us that were writing those particular books. So still, we were a small minority.
Although that's kind of
Um,
impressive because we're talking what year ish was this?
This would have been, I was with them till 95, so,
Okay.
or 95 to 98. I think it
Wow.
was in the mid to late 90s.
So that's a decent
And then,
number considering when that was.
yeah. And one of the women had worked at a parts counter, like, so she came from that. Uh, the other woman was, I think, a writer.
Okay.
So she kind of learned as she went along. But, we all got along. I don't remember any issues there because it was a professional office.
Right. Different
You
environment.
had to, yeah, you didn't come in and like, your cut off jeans and whatever. I mean, we were in an office environment, but it got bought out and they sold all the books off. It was bought by Disney and Disney was really interested. Yeah.
Film was bought by Disney?
Yeah. Chilton. Yeah. Well, because there were a lot of publications in Chilton. It
Okay.
wasn't just automotive, and they wanted those, so they just
Interesting.
kind of parsed off the information. So there we were now, we didn't have jobs. So one of the guys though that I had worked with, he had left early. He saw the writing on the wall and he went to the community college in Philly. And so he said to me, "This is you want to come here. I think this is a great opportunity for you." And so it took forever, but I finally got in because of the bureaucracy of the community colleges. But so I got in there as an instructional aide. So I made sure that, we had all the cars that we needed, the tools that we needed. We helped the students plan their schedules and, all that kind of stuff. And while I was there, I was able to take the program because for free, and
Nice.
I got my associate's degree.
Okay.
So once I had my associate's degree, then I could teach. So I taught like intro classes and I did it at night because I worked my regular job during the day with this college. And then I got certified to teach the safety inspection and I taught that at night too to the guys out in the field who wanted to do inspections. So that was interesting because now I had these older guys come in and they come in the class and they're like, who's teaching? And like I am. But again, by that time my reputation was out. They knew I was there. The word had spread. You know, there's this little woman working over there, and you're gonna probably meet her. So just
Right.
be clear.
The plus side of being one of only a handful of whatever you are in your industry, right? A handful of
Yeah,
women is that your reputation tends to precede you.
right.
There's
Yeah,
rumors around. There's this short
yeah,
little blonde lady.
yeah. Well, I used to laugh because the students um, we made up like tool boards. And
Okay.
when the students had to work on a project, they had to come like check out a board and take it. Well, when it came back, it had to have everything on it. And so the instructors would tell me, oh my word, they are so afraid of you. They are in there looking for this tool they lost. They're so afraid to come tell you. It was hysterical.
I
So
love
even
that.
without trying, I was respected in the sense that they knew that I was going to take it seriously and I wasn't playing around. So,
That's awesome. I think that's great, like words of wisdom for anybody coming into whatever field, like definitely as a teacher, because you need them to respect you, right?
right.
You need them to listen to you. But really for anybody going into any job where you're concerned you're not going to be taken seriously is like to bring that attitude of,
Yeah.
yeah, I love
Well,
it.
and I know, and so Rich and Dan, the two guys that I worked with, they were really supportive of me. They wanted me to teach other classes, and I was like, I don't know, I was like kind of nervous about the whole thing, and they were really like, supportive, and it's like, come on, this stuff, and that you can read the book and answer the questions, or whatever you have to do. You're also a teacher, so while I was at the college, our like adult education program approached me and said, "Hey, would you consider teaching a class for women, like a maintenance class?" And I said, okay, yeah, we could do that. I'll do it on a Saturday. We'll do it in the shop. And so they were like, well, we need a name for it. And I said, I don't know, just call it Ladies Start Your Engines. And it all
And that's
began.
how Ladies Start Your Engines. I did not know this story. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. I,
So we had the class and the women, I guess, talked it up. They loved it. And when I had been at the dealership, we used to do a class with a tech. There was another tech there for new owners. We'd bring them in, we put a car in the air, and everybody loved to get under cars when
totally.
you
You
don't
don't
want
get to
them.
see
Yeah.
that normally if you're like an
Yeah.
average
Yeah.
person, right?
Right. So they're all under there, and it's before their first oil change. And, we're just kind of checking in and talking about things. Well, it's about 50-50 men and women. And I noticed like all the men are underneath the car and all the women are standing way over here. And I'm like, what are they doing over there? So one of the things I noticed when I taught the class at the college by having all women is this class was totally different. These women were involved. They were engaged. They were asking questions. And I said, this is the key. I asked them like, why would you be this way if there were men in the class? Like, oh no, we don't want to look dumb in front of them. We wouldn't ask those questions and
Yeah,
I have always told people men aren't smarter about cars because they're men.
right.
They're just not afraid to ask questions.
Yeah.
And
And they're
so,
not afraid to pretend that they know, even if they don't know.
right, right, right.
Yeah,
So,
I saw the same thing as you, and I get criticized a lot. I don't know if you do. People will often say, like, why is it only for women? Why do you teach car care classes just for women? Men need to know this stuff too. And, like, guys are cool, girls are cool. But when you put guys and girls in the same room together, especially in that kind of learning environment, like, they get weird. Men get
yeah.
weird when there's women around. Women get weird when there's men around. Like, it's just reality. And you take something like cars, which is so intimidating to so many women, and I just would watch them naturally fall back when there were men present.
Yeah. And I would tell, like, I did have a guy in one of my classes once because we can't stop them from being in the class. I was working at a dealership or doing a class for a dealership, and they said, we can't stop him. And I said, that's okay. I'm just gonna, we'll get through this. It'll be fine. And he was not a kind of guy that was just like, oh, I know this. He wasn't one of those.
That's
So,
good.
um, but for the most part, I haven't had an issue. If the guys ask me, I say to them, well, there's plenty of opportunity for you to learn. You know, Guys get opportunities all through high school and all, they're the first ones that, dad, uncle, brother take out to the car
Right.
and say, "Hey, let me show you what's going on." Women don't get that opportunity. So, if you want a class, then talk to some of these other guys who
Yeah.
teach, who, you know what, I'm sure they can teach you a class. But it's important to me that women learn from another woman because it's a whole different experience. They know that I'm not talking down to them. I'm truly interested in them learning. I really try. I think you and I teach very similar, and I ask questions and I make the women answer them because I know they know the answers. And once they get the groove of how that's going, then they're not afraid to speak up because I'll just stand there and be like, "Come on, I know somebody knows the answer to this," and
Right.
they do know the answers. So yeah, it's so that kind of started the classes, and then friends of mine are like, you should do this, like really do this. And so it's been, a long time in the making. It's still not my only job. I wish it was, but I do enjoy teaching the classes every time I do them. So
So if anybody has a shop or a dealership, she and I are on opposite sides of the country. Both of us are available for hire for teaching car care classes. She's the
yeah.
boss, though. She's the OG. She's been doing it longer than I have. But no, your full time gig. What's your, like, as I like to call it, your grown up job that you do
Yeah,
for money to support the
so
passion?
so I have to tell you that there were a couple other things that I did because you
Mm.
got to get the full scope.
Yeah,
We're
please,
not there
please.
yet. Okay.
Yes.
So when I left Chilton, I finished my degree. I went to Temple and I finished my bachelor's degree. So I wanted to do that. And then I
What was your
was kind
bachelor's in?
of women's studies, of course.
This is so shocking to me.
Right. Yeah, I know. I know. So then I was able to kind of just do the business, but I was also teaching adjunct, I was teaching the night class. I had a lot of other things that I kind of pieced together.
Yeah.
Um, and then I moved to Lancaster and I kind of had to start over again. I took a job working for a battery place where we took old batteries and we recharged them and sold them, used batteries.
Oh,
And we were near there's a big auction around here, a
okay.
lot of auctions. So the guys would come from the auction and they're like, I just need a battery. It's going to run this car for, a day or whatever. But some of those batteries were good. They came out of like cars that crashed. They weren't damaged. We
Okay.
charged them. I mean, I put them in my cars and
I didn't
for
even
$35
know that
and it,
business, like something like that exists, but
yeah,
it makes sense.
yeah. So there were people doing that. So I did that for a little bit, but I was out in a warehouse with no heat and no air conditioning. And so that didn't last very long. And then, I went to work for a shop. It was a small family-owned shop, and I was kind of like, I don't know, the shop foreman. There were about four techs, and one of them was one of the owners, but he wanted to work on cars and not be dealing with
Okay.
the public. And then I had a service writer. It was a female, and I out front, and so I did that for a little bit. And then for 4 years, I actually worked at a parts place,
Okay.
and that was interesting because I had never done that. And that was a family business as well. And so I learned a lot because I kind of started over I'd get phone calls and the guys would say, I need to talk to parts. I'm like, you are talking to parts. So I had to reinvent myself again to where they were like, they thought they got the office or something.
Right.
And so I did that for a while, but I had had enough of that. And I now work with the Alliance of Automotive Service Providers. And it is a national organization, but I work with another woman who is the executive director, and we have all our members are independent shops in the state of Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So we offer member benefits and we do trainings, and I'm the training director. So I plan those trainings all across, the state of Pennsylvania. So I really am still in touch with that, small shops, like how they operate, the kind of things that they need. And so I think that's become my passion. While I like the dealership for, some reasons, but I have a lot of respect for the independent shops, the mom and pops that have kept things going for years and years and years. And so that's my grown up job that I do.
I love it. I mean, they're all grown-up jobs, but you know what I
Yeah.
mean. I want to go back for a second about the parts place that you worked at and the
Mhm.
people asking to, speak to a man essentially. Because again, that's a theme that I hear repeated often with service advisors or techs who are women and encountering that, or I need to speak to the technician and they're like, you're talking to her. Um, what's your advice? How did you handle that effectively, or recommendation for others on how they can handle that?
Well, I think the first thing that I did was, I'd say, well, I am the parts department. And they'll be like, well, I'm used to talking to one of the guys. And I said, well, they're both on the phone right now because we were busy. I mean, that was one of the reasons I couldn't stay there anymore. The phone was ringing off the hook, and I was like, it just gets to be a lot for 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
And so I'd say to them, well, I'm happy to put you on hold, but why don't you ask me, tell me what you're looking for and let's, give me a try. And most of the guys would do that. There were some people that called like one of the guys who worked there all the time. Like, so, they had their favorites. And I didn't meet a lot of them because they would call us, they'd ask for the part they need, and then they were delivered. So every once in a while they would come in, and then of course you heard their voice and you're like, aren't you, it was really kind of weird. But again, I think my reputation grew, and because some of these guys were calling and they didn't really know what they needed. And then they would be like, well, they'd start telling me what was going on. And I said, well, have you ever tried this? And they're like, oh no, you know what? I'm going to try that. So as they started to learn that I knew, and what my background was, then again, but that took some time because they weren't used to calling and getting a woman. And especially we were the kind of business that when they called us because they knew that whoever answered the phone could help them. They knew that we knew our stuff. We weren't just somebody that was hired at a desk to, look everything up on the computer and just, go down and here's your part. Okay. And, you didn't ask questions like when they said, oh, I'm going to need rotors all around. You go, are there drums in the rear? Because that was the question on your computer.
Right.
Like, that would kill you right there because they knew you did not know what you were talking
Right,
about.
exactly.
Yeah. So, I think that I always came at it. I didn't get angry. I would say I was happy to, put them on hold or what have you, but I was the only one available. So, if you need the answer, you're going to have to try.
That's
And as
perfect.
long as they were willing to do that, then, we learned about each other. And I knew if they were looking for something really tough, I didn't know engines to rebuild them parts off the top of my head, like one of the guys did there. And I was like, hey, let me put you with him because he really knows that. And, we were a business. We want to sell the parts. So
I love that. There's so much juice in that answer that is so valuable, I think, to so many people. And one of the things that I think stands out for me is just, you know, approaching it not as a like get angry thing, but just very clearly like, all right, I can help you or I can put you on hold. I'm going to put it in your court, right? And recognizing that there's different types of pushback that we get as women, right? There's the this is weird. I've never met anybody who's a female who does this.
right,
And then there's the I don't believe women should be doing this. And those are
right,
two like very, very different groups of women. And I think I would dare say most of it is the first. Most of the time it's the this is interesting. This is weird. I'm not familiar with this. And it's a
right.
minority of the time where it's the complete like angry you don't belong here.
Yeah. And I think that, that happened rarely, but sometimes it did. But like when I worked at the dealership, I remember there was an older gentleman who came in and he was having trouble with his radio and I got the car and he didn't know he was sitting down. So when the vehicle was finished and there really wasn't anything wrong with it, you remember, well, okay, let's go back to radios when they used to have a dial and you turned them
Yes.
instead of pushing the button and it was digital. Okay, so this was a new digital radio. And for him, if you had that dial, you could really tweak it and be right in between. But once we went digital, it just went to the next one and you couldn't really dial it in close.
Yeah.
And so he was used to that. And so I had to come out after because they knew I was one of those techs they could bring out to talk to people. And this guy's looking at me like, who are you? And so I'm telling him I worked on his car and this is what I found, that there really wasn't a problem. This is just how it works. And I got in the car and I showed him, what he could do. And he said, well, I want to talk to one of the male techs. And so it took everything in me to just kind of go, okay, I'm going to get you somebody. And so I got one of the other guys and I walked away and I was done. I knew I just was done. I wasn't going to stand there and see what he said. I went back. And so I was working in my bay and I look up and I see this guy walking down to where I was. And he came over and he said, can I talk to you for a minute? And I said, sure. And he said, I just wanted to come over and apologize to you. He said, the tech that that looked at my car said the same thing that you did. And he told me that I should listen to you because you were a good technician. So when that kind of stuff happens, you kind of want to go, yeah, like, but you don't,
No, but it's
and
affirming, right? Like it's so
yes,
affirming when that
yes,
happens. And not just when he owned it, but that you had another, tech who had your back like that, because
right,
that's so important too.
right, right. So, there's all kinds of experiences. I mean, over the years and all the different jobs I've been in and all the things, it's really funny when I go somewhere with a resume, people are like, what you have done? Like, and I've done everything but like sell a car in industry. I've done all the back of the house stuff, I have to say, and, there was a time when I went and I helped write curriculum for high school, books, you know. I mean, there's just all kinds of interesting things have come my way, and I haven't said no. That's the other thing. Even if I wasn't sure, like, really, can I do this? And I thought, well, these guys are doing it, and I know what they know, you know, so just going to say yes.
Right.
And you know, it's worked for me, and I'm not afraid to say the big thing. One, if I was going to give any advice to anybody that's out there that's teaching or, you know, working on cars, just never lie to people that you know something that you don't, or it's going to come back to get you. So I learned early on that I wasn't going to take a chance of being wrong and then be chastised about it.
Right.
I was going to be honest and just say, you know what? I'm not really sure about that. But if I can't find an answer for you, I know plenty of people that can help me, and I'll get back to you with that.
Yeah.
And that it is no time to be throwing out there, oh, yeah, well, yeah, if you do this and do that, then it'll work. Because if it doesn't, as a female, we're really never going to hear the end of it.
I agree. And I think at the same time, women tend to be more hard on themselves for not knowing everything.
Right.
Like we think on some level that we're supposed to know all the things. And the reality is nobody knows all the things, right? Like
Right.
if, there are some people who know a lot about some things, but nobody knows all
Right.
of the things. And it's just not
Right.
possible. But we beat ourselves up. We're like, oh, I don't know that thing. It must be because I'm a fraud, or I'm not really that good at it. Or, you know, we compare ourselves, and it's just not, it's not a fair judgment that we put on ourselves.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's, and it, like I say, it's tough when we fail big, not because of us, but because people are expecting it. And so if you're in a shop where any one person is not on your team, they're going to be talking about that forever, you know, and
Yeah, they're
it's
waiting for it.
that's right. And so that doesn't help you build your confidence if you know that every time, you know, oh, I'm going to do this again, I hope this doesn't happen. Or so, you know, those kind of things. I get it. It's tough to work in a shop when you don't have support. But I think for the most part, you know, I had support in the shop. Uh, I think the schooling was really the only thing in the very beginning, was really the kind of the worst experience for me. But find those allies, and then they will protect you and they will defend you, and they will, you know, talk to those other guys and tell them to knock it off.
Yeah,
So that's been my experience anyway.
ideally. So you good guys that are out there, because there's a ton of you who are awesome and supportive and treat women like human beings when they're in the shop, instead of like women. Like we need you. Like how many times through Lori's story have you heard like her male allies in the shop having her back, defending her, saying yes, she knows what she's talking about, and you know, really creating that culture of support with folks who may not have been as supportive. So like yes, we appreciate the men out there who accept us and are willing to work with us, but we also need you to be allies and get in the rest of the shop to not be not cool.
I think the other thing is too, for the women who are out there, is don't be afraid to reach out. There's a whole group of us that have probably been through what you're going through, or we know someone who has. So don't think you're alone. Don't think it's the first time it's ever happened, because it's not.
Yeah.
You know, stick with it if you can. If you're in a job that is just not tolerable at all, then get out, because there's plenty of places to work. And there are people out there that are very interested in having women work with them, or they're just interested in a good tech. I mean, you know, I know, Bogi, you talked a lot when we were at SEMA, we talked about this too. Like, I I agree with you. I look forward to the day where, you know, somebody comes out and says to the shop, "These are my technicians," not "That's my female technician over there." And that, you know, when I was at the dealership, one of the things that made me crazy is some of the salespeople would walk their new customers around, or, you know, customers they hope to have, and they'd bring them back to the shop to show them, which
Yeah.
is fine, you know, and then they'd be like, "And this is our female tech right here, and we're the only shop around that has one." And I'm like, "Are you just trying to like kill me at a, you know, I mean, what do you think is going to happen when you walk back through that door?" Because
Yeah.
every guy here heard that.
Yeah.
And
it's almost worse, right? Like we talked
yes,
about it, Seema, it's almost
yeah,
like being singled out because you're a woman, either for the positive or for the negative. Neither of those is a good thing at the end of
right.
the day. Like, I just want to be a technician without the gender qualifier.
And I get it. Sometimes they think they're being helpful,
Right.
or supportive. And so I would tell them, I'm like, please stop doing that. I said, you're putting me in a situation that is not helpful.
Yeah.
I don't, this isn't the circus. I'm not here, like, I'm still my job.
Right.
It, would you say that if you want to say that about everybody else, like, oh yeah, this is a great group or whatever, that's fine.
Yeah.
But, it's just so those kind of things, if you keep those in mind, and again, like I there's a Facebook group that I belong to that has a lot of all women techs and that kind of thing, and so I hear a lot of the stuff that's going on there that again is still not great,
Yeah.
but I think it's great that they're reaching out, they're telling their stories on there, they're getting support, even if we're not in the same country, I think it's a great way to uh, have support, hear what's going on, hear what you might be able to do. I responded to a woman on there because while I was at the dealership, I had harassment and I had to report it. That's not an easy thing to go through. It's even more difficult because you're working back in the shop. It's not like you're somebody from the office and it happened when you walk through the shop. I'm working with these people all the time. So I've been there and, I felt like I could give her some advice of things to do. So there's somebody who's been through what you've been through. So don't be afraid to reach out.
Absolutely. And I think that's the big like differentiator now. Like, when you were coming up, there you didn't have other women to talk to really. When I was coming up, I knew about you, but like I didn't have other women to reach out to and to share stories and to say like, yes, what you're going through is normal. Those feelings are normal. This experience and how you deal with it and how you cope with it. So while it is getting better, a lot of the crap still exists, but the beauty is that now we know about each other and we can find each other and like use that resource to reach out. I think every woman in the industry that I know is like more than happy to talk to other women who are coming up and share their
Yep.
experiences and be there for each other. And that's huge. That is huge.
And networking. I am constantly, I don't forget where I came from. I don't forget the people who helped me along the way. And, you know, don't ever think that you got where you are without somebody that paved the way before you. And so I think that's so important for me is to keep looking back. And if there's any way that I can help somebody else. And now, I've been around for so long. No,
You're not that old.
yeah, no, not that old. But, I know how things work and I get it. And if you are looking for a job opportunity and I can help somebody or I can connect somebody or I'm happy to do that. I enjoy doing that. I enjoy being able to give back because I'm in that position now. And so, uh, those are important things too. Don't forget where you came from. And, there's plenty of young women coming up that we need to help support too, so that they are successful and it continues to grow.
Amen to that. And what a beautiful note to be ending on because we've like perfectly at our hour mark pretty much. So you're wonderful and amazing and have dropped so much incredible knowledge and wisdom and great points. And I hope people who are watching this like go back and watch it again because there were a lot of gems in there. A lot of them we touched on specifically, and a lot of them just kind of we're just in the midst of all of it. But go back and listen because there's a lot of good stuff in there. Lori, you're fantastic. Thank you for joining me. I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for all of those that came before me, and I'm excited about the future and what folks like you and Jody and the other amazing women that I know who kind of came before are doing to make the future better and brighter for more women coming up in the future. So
Well,
I thank you.
don't cut yourself short either, because you have done some amazing things just in the time that we've known each other. I mean, you're on 2 Motor Trend shows. I mean, you're doing the builds. You're learning new skills.
Yeah.
You're continuing to learn, and you're bringing all these women in to let them learn whether they want to work on cars for a career or just try it, and that is awesome. So I think that that was one of the things that I always liked when we met and we were kind of doing the same thing. I was like, this is it's gonna be fun to
Yeah.
see where we end up, and I think we're doing okay.
Yeah. I think you and I share that passion of like, there were struggles, there was hardship, but it was worth it. And there's stuff we love about the industry. And if we can make the path a little easier for those who come next, then that's, I can die happy, right? If I can make it just
Yep,
a little bit easier, just a little bit easier, then I can die a happy person. So,
yep,
yeah.
I agree.
So I thank everybody who tuned in and watched this. Please do come back next week for another episode of Trades Lady Happy Hour live on Instagram. We've been doing this for almost a full year and a half, I think. All of the past interviews live on my IGTV. So if you like this and you want to see more of it, you can go check out all of the past episodes and make sure you come back next Wednesday for another episode. Thank you all for joining in. Lori, thank you for joining and being my guest. And until next week, be good to yourselves, be good to one another, and have a great evening. Bye, guys.
Thanks. See ya.